When a ruthless gang thought they could terrorize an isolated black woman on her quiet farm, they never imagined she carried the deadliest secret of all. She was once a legendary Marine sniper whose name alone made enemies shiver. What happens when hunters become the hunted? Stick around, because this story will grip you until the last bullet flies. And don't forget to subscribe for more spine-chilling survival tales that remind you never to underestimate the quiet ones. The sun was setting over the dusty fields, painting the sky in crimson streaks that bled into the horizon, and the farm lay silent except for the low hum of cicadas, the rustle of leaves, and the steady creak of the windmill that had stood for decades like a stubborn sentinel. Yet what no one knew, what no outsider could ever guess, was that the black woman who worked this soil alone, whose neighbors called her Miss Ruth, and who seemed like just another weary farmer battling against the elements, had once been a legend whispered in barracks and briefing rooms, a Marine sniper so lethal that enemy forces had circulated wanted posters with her silhouette, calling her the Ghost of Fallujah, a soldier whose one eye behind the scope was said to end wars before they started, but now she had laid down her rifle and traded the chaos of battle for the quiet of chickens, cornfields, and long evenings with tea on the porch, until one fateful night when a gang of city-bred marauders came roaring down the dirt road in stolen trucks, headlights cutting like blades through the twilight, guns rattling in the beds, laughter rising in cruel echoes, and their leader, a tattooed brute named Axel, had marked this farm as easy prey, whispering promises of loot, land, and fear-stricken entertainment to his men, never once imagining that their greed had led them straight into the lair of a predator far deadlier than any they had faced in the streets. Ruth was in her barn when she heard the engines first, and a chill ran through her, not of fear but of memory, a muscle-deep recognition of the sound of advancing threats, and though she had sworn off violence, though she had buried her rifle in a locked chest beneath the floorboards years ago, she knew instantly what was coming. She extinguished the lantern, let the barn sink into shadow, and crouched low, listening as the vehicles stopped at the gate, as boots thudded against earth, and as raucous voices argued about whether to take the farmhouse first or torch the fields to watch them burn, and Ruth felt her pulse slow, not quicken, because the sniper's heart did not race in chaos, it steadied, like a metronome guiding her back into the dance she had once mastered. The gang began spreading out, some smashing bottles, others shouting obscenities meant to scare, and one of them fired his rifle into the air just to watch the birds scatter, but Ruth slipped silently through the barn's rear door, her steps ghost-like on familiar ground, and as she crossed the field she counted them in her head. 5 by the gate, 3 circling the barn, 2 heading for her porch, and 1 lingering by the trucks, maybe a lookout, and with every number her old instincts sharpened, calculating angles, distances, vulnerabilities, because while they believed they were predators, she knew they were just reckless children walking into a battlefield they could not even see. She reached her farmhouse, slipped inside through the kitchen window like a shadow returning home, and made her way to the trapdoor beneath the rug. With steady hands she lifted the boards, revealing the steel case within, and when she opened it, the smell of oiled metal rose like incense, and there it was. The rifle that had written her legend, matte black and silent as death, and though her fingers had not wrapped around it in years, the weight felt like destiny sliding back into her palms, and in that moment Ruth was no longer a farmer, no longer just Miss Ruth, but the ghost reborn. Outside, Axel ordered his men to break into the house, shouting promises of spoils, but before the first boot touched her porch steps, Ruth was already upstairs, perched by the attic window where she had once dried herbs, her rifle barrel resting on the sill, her scope glinting with the dying sun, and her breath became the whisper of a storm about to break. The first gang member, a lanky boy with more tattoos than sense, swung his shotgun toward the front door, but Ruth's trigger finger squeezed once, smooth and sure, and he dropped without a sound, crumpling like a ragdoll before his comrades even realized what had happened, and when the others spun around, cursing, shouting, firing wildly into the dark, Ruth had already vanished from the window, slipping silently to the other side of the attic where her vantage gave her sightlines across the barn, and one by one, she began dismantling their arrogance. A man by the gate fell with a bullet through the throat, another dropped clutching his knee as he screamed, and panic spread like wildfire through the gang, because the bullets came from nowhere, precise and merciless, as though the very shadows were hunting them. Axel roared at his men to hold their ground, to find the shooter, but deep inside he felt the creeping realization that they were not raiding a helpless farm, they were trapped inside the hunting grounds of a ghost. Ruth moved through her home like liquid night, her every step measured, her every shot deliberate, never wasting a bullet, never revealing her exact perch for long. And as she thinned their numbers, memories flooded her. The sandstorms of Iraq, the whispers of comrades who called her the one-shot widowmaker, the faces of targets who never saw her coming. And for the first time in years, the battlefield surged back into her veins, not as trauma but as clarity, a reminder of what she was built for. The gang tried to regroup, shouting to flank her, but every attempt was cut short, every rush ended in screams, and when Axel finally realized half his men were already dead or bleeding, he barked at the survivors to torch the barn, thinking fire might smoke her out, but even as one of his men lit a rag and stuffed it into a bottle, a bullet shattered the glass in his hand, setting his arm ablaze, and he howled in agony while the others scrambled to put him out, fear overtaking bravado. Ruth whispered to herself as she worked, not out of madness but ritual, the quiet chants of patience she had once used to steady her in combat. Breathe, see, squeeze, move, and the rhythm made her unstoppable, until at last only Axel and 2 of his men remained, crouched behind the trucks, debating whether to flee or fight, and Axel, prideful, furious, and terrified, chose fight.